Good job, Darren.
Great.
Okay,
Say got it.
You just click got it.
Just click got it.
Just click got it.
Oh, we don't have Kyle.
No.
Go ahead.
Unmute myself. There we go.
You do
All
have
right.
time. I'm just attending remotely tonight.
Oh,
Okay. Hey, Kyle.
Hey,
Hey, Johanna. Okay, I'd like to call a meeting to order. I will take a motion to approve the minutes from November 15, 2021 and November 22, 2021.
So
Special
moved.
meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Appointments, recognitions, and resignations. Appoint John Lynch as a part-time on-call firefighter to the Mount Desert Fire Department effective December 7, 2021 at a starting pay of $18 an hour.
I move approval with thanks.
Second.
Right, all in favor? Consent agenda, department reports, highway, public works, Department of Marine Resources, renewal of limited purpose agriculture licenses for 2022, signed proposal for an energy audit of the highway garage, bypass notice of municipal solid waste going to PERC and not to Coastal Resources of Maine, progress report of Hamden facility sale, DOT's anticipated 2022 paving in the town of Mount Desert and elsewhere on Mount Desert Island, Hancock County Commissioners' regular meeting minutes of November 2, 2021, and Acadia National Park Advisory Commission draft minutes of September 13th, 2021.
Move approval as presented.
Second.
Anybody want to pull anything out? All right.
But I have a question. Are we gonna approve
Mike Olson
Mike?
to the warrant.
He
Well, that
wasn't on the
That was on
agenda.
the appointment, that number 3, I was gonna get back to that. This application for the warrant should have been under item 3.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
Can we
there.
approve it even though he's not on the agenda?
It is on the agenda.
Where is it?
No, it's on my agenda that I printed off the website.
Oh,
Oh, it's not on the
Oh,
agenda, it
okay.
was in the
Oh,
book.
okay. All right.
Oh, maybe they added that after I.
Okay, well,
Okay.
anyway, I move approval of, do you
Do
want
we
us
need to
Sure,
vote on
yes.
consent agenda first?
Yeah, why don't we finish up the
I'm
consent
sorry,
agenda?
I'm sorry, thought we did.
Sorry. All in favor? Great. So back to appointments and recognitions, I would take a motion to appoint Mike Olson to the warrant committee.
I would move approval with thanks.
Second.
Good. All in favor? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I believe it was the intent to have Mike Carroll give us an update on the hand facility. I was told it was in the agenda already, so I would guess it would be 4E.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay, Mike?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. What I've prepared for you is a brief update, and then I can answer any questions that you have. I'll start with a recap since exclusivity ended right up to present, right up to today, if that's okay with the board.
Yeah, fine.
So I'll briefly recap since exclusivity ended for the former buyer to the present. Every week, the bondholders in the MRC were agreeing to extend the memorandum of understanding known as the MOU, which expired on March 31st, 2021 for Delta Thermal Energy, DTE. The prospective purchaser at the time, while waiting for DTE to produce valid term sheet from a lender. Generally, if all seemed in order, we would extend the MOU 1 week at a time. In June, some of the agreed upon terms bondholders had with DTE started falling wayside, which bondholders had addressed with DTE. DTE was informed that it could jeopardize the weekly extensions of the MOU or parts of it if not corrected promptly. It was agreed upon in the MOU that the bondholders had only so much funding left in the coastal accounts to keep the plant idle while DTE secured financing. If DTE could not close the deal, expect a time frame, and those funds dissolve, then DTE would take on the cost to keep the plant idle while maintaining exclusivity, working towards a closing. Remember, DTE was not MRC's first choice, but it's also not MRC's asset to sell. So we did the best thing that we could, and we put as many teeth in the MOU as possible, such as DTE will need to post a performance bond. MRC needs to approve DTE's operating plan. Monthly stakeholder meetings need to report to MRC their progress. Must have local management with industry experience on the ground running the facility. Principal of interest of MRC's loan provided to Coastal get reimbursed, and much more. What has been happening over the last couple months, we still don't have a closing or set a closing date. DTE has not finalized its financing. I believe DTE thought securing the purchase of the facility and the improvements would be much easier than it has proven. With the fear of winterization expenses and the sites reopened being pushed even further, DTE was notified in August that due to their failure to meet several extended deadlines, produce proof of adequate financing, and not fulfilling commitments agreed upon in the MOU, DTE will no longer have exclusivity for the Hamden site's purchase, and bondholders will be able to evaluate proposals from other entities. DTE can still attempt to get a deal done, but exclusivity has been terminated. While the Turn event increases our optimism for completing a sale, we are also keenly aware of approaching weather. Over the last month and a half, MRC has learned that some of the utilities have not been paid by the trustee or DTE. Once MRC was notified of this, we met with each vendor, established a new account, and paid the invoice moving forward. Most recently was the natural gas service, which we have successfully resolved, and potential danger of frozen pipes or other cold weather hazards has been averted. With bondholder trustee willing to entertain other offers, now the exclusivity is dissolved for DTE, bondholders in the MRC invited 4 different entities to submit proposals to purchase the Hamden facility. All 4 accepted the invitation and scheduled times to tour the facility. The new potential buyer's deadline to submit proposals was September 30th. 2 of the bidders submitted complete proposals. The bidder notified bondholders they would consider a partnership with another entity, but would not be submitting a bid as a front runner, and the 4th decided not to bid. MRC and the bondholders have reviewed the prospective buyers' proposals. MRC's president, consultant, attorney, executive director have all participated in meetings with potential buyers. Both potential buyers reported back to their teams to review all items discussed in those meetings. They collaborated on any issues or concerns raised by bondholders MRC to bring back to the table solutions and revised offers. Presently, all is now in the hands of the bondholders trustee. One of the new buyers has provided the bondholders with what MRC feels is a very credible proposal. This was a revised proposal submitted several weeks ago from one of the new interested parties. We have received very little communication from the bondholder trustee regarding whether this proposal will be accepted or not. The MRC has a board meeting tomorrow to discuss options to address the trustees' inaction. Where things sit today is exactly one of the reasons MRC sent out a fundamental matters notice in September to its members. This fundamental matter informed members who might want to terminate the current lease agreement or at least put bondholders on notice of potential termination. Remember, MRC is not the owner or the one selling the Hamden facility. It's not ours to sell, but we do own the land it sits on, and our patience is wearing thin. This allows the MRC some leverage. If things are still dragging along and not coming to fruition, then we have options. MRC needs to see more of a sense of urgency moving things along to involve parties before the heart of winter sets in. With the increasing volumes of MSW this year and the other waste processors' capacity issues, which we have all seen, it is evident that the plant needs to reopen, and we don't want to allow this to drag on. Has to do with these capacity issues since April on a regular basis. Moving forward, MRC is continuously working to preserve the asset so that it may be sold and restarted. Keeping the plant fully winterized is part of that work as it is keeping the needs and the well-being of our members first as we work toward a reopening of the plant. Once again, we extend our sincere thanks for your support and patience throughout the process. In all of MRC's efforts, we place membership's best interest at the highest priority to ensure responsible and cost-effective management and disposal of our members' solid waste. MRC's strength and efficiencies have always relied on the ability to work collectively and stick together to achieve these common goals. Thank you.
Martha?
I have a question, Mike. Thanks for coming to the meeting. Are all of these, so it sounds like there are two really serious bidders at this point. Is that right?
There's one
Only one.
strong one.
And is that, we've been getting so many emails about this lately that it's a little confusing. But is that bidder somebody that has the expertise and the ability to run this plant, or are they gonna junk it and sell it for pieces? Is that a possibility?
No, that's not a possibility because once again, the value in the plant, the value in the plants in the contracts for the waste processing, the DEP permit, which we hold, and then of course, signing the lease for the land. The plant's not gonna be, the plant's not worth a lot. With recycle markets where they went and how the equipment would have to be taken out of there, the plant's not worth a lot scrapped at all.
So this bidder, do they have experience in running this type of plant? Because one of the, it seems to me, besides the financing for Fiberite and then Delta, one of the big issues has been that does the plant itself actually work?
Well, so this bidder does plan on running the plant. They do have experience. The only detail I can go in on the experience is they have a lot more experience on one end than the other, which is a very positive thing. Let's just say for one of the materials that the plant produces. But remember, we did a performance test, and to meet what the waste that the MRC provides, it has to be able to do 45 ton per hour. And we put 1,200 tons on the floor, and it did produce that 45 tons per hour. It also had to meet 50% diversion in the high 50s, so it did meet that diversion also. The problem with the plant was the wet end, which everybody did acknowledge. That has been looked at by 3 different engineers, all independent of one of another. The investment on the wet end is out there. They know what the investment needs to be. The wet end worked, and the wet end was making the pulp, but it just couldn't keep up with the feed. And so all that has been looked at, and that is part of this package. It's called the Profit Improvement Plan. And that is part of the sale package also. All that information is right there for the new buyer.
I have a question. You alluded to, I mean, what we knew already was that MRC owns the land, but not the plant, and that you said, but that does provide you with some leverage, and that your patience has grown thin, as is ours. But you said MRC has options. Could you explain what that means?
At the end of the day, the bondholder trustee could just decide to come in and dismantle the plant and sell off the steel. Is their asset. We have options, and without divulging too much of those options, I like to call them nuclear options. There's a few of them, and one of those options would be terminating the lease. If we terminated the lease, then that's a 30-day notification where basically you'd have to ask everybody to come in and get their stuff. That would be almost impossible to remove a building and to remove all your stuff in 30 days. And then there's a couple other options I just wouldn't like to go into right now, but we do have options. But we'd like to see, we feel this is a credible offer on the table, and we would like to see us all work together to get this done in a timely manner rather than drag it out in what I call the nuclear options.
Yeah, I guess that's not, all due respect, that's less than satisfactory response. If you say that you have options, I'd like to know what they are. And the option of terminating the lease and asking them to come collect their goods off your property is, I mean, that's an option. I don't need more explanation of that, but if that's the only option that you're willing to explain to us, then I'm not sure that really helps me.
Well, with that option is they might not come collect their goods. They might forfeit the plan over to the MRC. And that would be an opportunity for the MRC and the members to get the plan up and going. That's one and part of those options. They don't have to come in and collect their stuff. They might appoint a receiver, and a receiver might go through all the debtors and go through all the liens and get everything negotiated and getting taken care of so that bondholders get some money and folks get out of the way. And then everything's clean and a buyer can just come in and not worry about all those creditors. That's another option.
Meanwhile, I don't know how long these processes take, but that sounds like at least another 15 months of landfilling to me. I don't know. Okay.
I don't foresee this going 15 months. With everything that's with liens on the plan and all that type of stuff, I don't foresee this going that long at all.
Meanwhile, we're kind of bailing out the plant by paying the gas bill and loaning money to Fiberite. I mean, is there a certain point here where you just cut your losses and get out? I mean, it just seems like it's been a mess from the beginning.
So we know yes, but in the best interest of the members, there's not a lot of options for the waste. So, I mean, there is a point where you cut your losses, but I just don't feel that we're there yet, and the board doesn't feel they're there yet. I mean, it's our responsibility also. There's 102,000 tons of MSW out there, and in this part of Maine, there's just not a lot of options with transportation costs to get it down to southern Maine, capacity issues at PERC, and then nobody wants to see this in landfill. We're fighting the fight to get this plant going because it's one of the best options to keep things out of landfill and to keep the capacity down so that it can be kept up with at the other processor.
Well, I think that in the interest of moving forward, that we continue to look for other options while this hopefully resolves within a fairly short period of time. I don't see a lot of options here for us. The options for dealing with municipal solid waste are the same options that were there before Fiberite came to town. Landfills and incineration. So we need to be pursuing those at the same time we are trying to resolve this mess. Does that sound reasonable?
I do. I think that, I think that from the beginning, the idea and the vision behind the plant that's been sitting idle for far too long, we would all agree, sounded great. It hasn't panned out. We're all still really hoping it does, but I think people are losing hope rapidly that that's going to come to fruition. And that's, while that's sad, it's like Martha said, at some point, at what point do we decide, it was a great idea, but it's time. And I don't know when that time is, but it feels like now to a lot of people.
I think that now that, we did get some decent news that recycling, at least to some degree here in the Mount Desert, town of Mount Desert, is back on the table. It's fun. I remember back a few years and how excited like Jeff was just saying, we were all really excited about this. They had, it was reviewed at the University of Maine, and the engineers there said, yes, this works. And I do sort of remember at the time, Tony saying, to get it up to scale, and I'm paraphrasing here, Tony, I'm sorry, but to get it up to scale, there's gonna be some bumps in the road because it's never been done at this scale. But it is frustrating because it literally seems like every little thing that could go wrong has gone wrong. So, I mean, my fingers are crossed and I'm hopeful that this sort of third time around, third time's a charm. But as John was alluding to, I think we've got to have some contingency plans in place too, because we don't want to end up landfilling, incinerating. There's got to be better options than that. And, you know, a lot of work has gone into this. I'm willing to stick around for sort of one more go at it and hoping it works, but we do need to start thinking contingency, I believe.
At the same time.
Exactly, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
definitely.
It's like hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
what went wrong was when the technology works. The owners got in to the plant, it was running. They didn't have enough money to keep it going.
Right.
And they developed a 36 or 37 point profit improvement plan. And their estimate was they needed $15 million to implement it. The bondholders were going to loan them that money. And at the 11th hour, literally, it was pulled out from underneath them. And that's when things started going south. The technology does work. And I think John might have said it. Actually, it was Jeff. The waste is not all going to landfill. When PERC is operational, it's going to PERC, and we're doing what we always did, is we're burning the garbage to generate steam for electricity. But I'm not going to down, in these meetings, I've always said I was confident. I'm not going to downgrade that to hopeful, but it's in the hands of the owners of the facility, which is the bondholders. And we are thinking contingency. One big contingency is the 115 members that represent the 112,500 tons of MSW. That's power. That's a big bargaining chip. We've looked high and low, and we've had people come to us and offer little to nothing for the plant upon occasion, is what it seems like at times. So patience is a virtue. Mine, trust me, mine, Michael's, it's waning quite severely. Thank you. The sad thing is the technology works, and we have market for the pulp.
It's funny, at the start of this, like, it seemed like we were sort of focused on the technology, and because it hasn't been done on this scale. And what we should have been asking questions about at the time is the money side of it, which I guess that's what everything comes down to.
All right.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
update, Mike, and
Thanks.
Thank you for having me. And as always, I'm an open line of communication. If anything comes up or you need to talk to me, you're more than welcome to call or email, or I can obviously come into one of your meetings. So I appreciate the time. And, if you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to update on a Climate to Thrive's action plan.
You want to do selectmen?
No, we're going to do this
Oh,
first.
sorry, okay.
Then you're gonna do them after.
Yes.
Yeah.
Johanna, you're up.
I'm up. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay, because I think sometimes it's helpful to have a visual aside from just my face talking at you. So I'm going to do that. And here, just to share an update on our work on the climate action plan for the town of Mount Desert, which is going really well. So a couple of the pieces that we've been working on this far, we've been having these meetings with the department heads and going through those. And as we do so, we haven't met with everybody yet, but we've met with about half. Certain themes are arising in these meetings. We're approaching them to kind of collect information from the various department heads, talk about the plan, talk about concerns they have, hopes they have for how the plan might function, get really important information from the department heads. And a few of the themes that we've seen coming out of these meetings. One big one is concern about the community support for the cost of implementing the plan. So as we think about things like electrifying the town fleet, wanting to really be sure that we're prepping the community for budget items like that to come up before them and to understand why the cost is different from what they've seen before. Everybody has talked about how much they need a plan to guide the work towards the goals stated in the Declaration of Climate Emergency and to help them understand how to proceed forward. There's been recognized the need for data collection at all levels of town infrastructure. And then a question keeps arising about how and what we want to address within the plan around adaptation. So the Declaration of Climate Emergency is very focused on mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, but there's also been a strong focus in these conversations with department heads on including planning for adaptation, and also possibly talking about land use and water use in the town. So the drafting process is well underway, and I can kind of walk through the outline of how we're approaching that draft. We've read a bunch of different other climate action plans from towns, kind of the top ones that we found available. And our approach to the outline is to have an introduction section, which we're hoping to include either a letter from the Sustainability Committee or the Select Board to the community about the plan. The purpose of the plan, how it is important to help guide these types of decision-making processes at all levels of the municipal government. The specific goals that the plan is working towards aligned with the Declaration of Climate Emergency, background for the plan, so both the declaration and also a little bit of information about what climate change is going to look like specifically in our community here in Mount Desert. Economic impact, so benefits of doing this type of work and what the economic impact might be for the community and things to look for along that. And then the priorities within the plan, so why we're starting, where we're suggesting we start, and then an outline of the different action areas. And then the rest of the plan will focus on these action areas, which are outlined here. Benchmarking and greenhouse gas inventory being a very key priority up front to gain an understanding of the town's current emissions and current energy use and where the best places are to start when we're talking about things like electrification, efficiency, and switching over to clean energy. High performance buildings, of course, is all about electrification and energy efficiency. Clean energy, switching over to clean energy power and what that might look like for the town. And we're going to look at, different potential solar sites in the town, the difference between ownership and subscription to clean energy, and some different financial models that are available for the town to look at to help them compare different options. Transportation, the electrification of fleets and charging, the waste and recycling, which obviously we're just talking a fair bit about. And then a section on looking at what community adaptation and resilience might look like and how we might plan for that, and what are things that we need to know to help us plan for that in the town of Mount Desert. And as I've explained here, each action area includes an introduction to the importance of that action area as placed within the plan, specific goals, the specific actions, and with accompanying key players, who we need to have on board to execute that action, potential costs wherever it's been possible for us to identify those, resources, which are kind of like, support and information that the town will find helpful in engaging in those actions, and then specific financial resources that we've been able to identify that the town might turn to for support. Policy examples that might be helpful, and also suggestions for community support and the role that it might play in each action item. And so that's the layout for the rest of the plan. Questions that have arose and kind of things that have arisen for us as we've been drafting the plan. So since we don't have really robust benchmarking data, including a greenhouse gas audit for town infrastructure, I think, and we've already talked about how, we all want this to be a living document that will be consistently updated and changed to reflect as information comes in and as the town uses it and gains more information about how it's most usable. And so, this is a version A, which lays out a really good roadmap, some clear priorities, first steps, what they might cost, resources to help approach them, And then hopefully the town will engage in some pretty robust energy benchmarking and greenhouse gas audits, which will paint an even clearer picture of what your priorities are and where you're going to essentially get the biggest bang for your buck, where to start the work. And hopefully that information would be incorporated into an updated version B of the plan. So saying, you know, if we do A around electrification of our fleet, we will reduce this much % of our annual greenhouse gas emissions. So that I think would be a good trajectory to approach this with. There's also kind of arisen this question as we've been reading other plans and thinking about this plan, and we talked about this a little bit up front, that there's a difference between municipal plans and actions versus community-wide planning and community-wide actions. And there's excellent examples of plans that have done the latter, where they, you know, focus very specifically on what the municipality has control over and municipal infrastructure, while also making some really sound suggestions and pointing to areas where the municipality can support the community in electrification, in energy efficiency, in switching to clean energy. And so greenhouse gas reduction can occur community-wide. And so, you know, I think that our understanding from the town and from the sustainability committee in version A is to be focusing on a municipal plan and municipal actions. I think it would also be easy for us to include, you know, just a couple of pages or one page that points towards how to maybe go about embarking on a community-wide plan and where some key places might be to start in ways that the town could support a community-wide transition and partners that they could gain in that endeavor. Then, of course, there's arisen this question of incorporating community adaptation and resilience to the impacts of climate change. And so I think that there's a way that we can incorporate some of that in version A, and we can also identify what we need to know about what's going to happen in Mount Desert and how we need to apply that knowledge to then have a more robust community adaptation and resilience plan for version B. And then the question of how to incorporate land and water use. And I know, for example, the town of Bar Harbor decided not to include that in version A in a really robust way of their plan. And so I think that there's a question about how we want to approach that in Mount Desert. The next steps are that we're going to continue meeting with the department heads and continue completing the draft. And we'd be happy to provide an update in January, whenever that works for the select board. And our plan is to submit a draft to the sustainability committee first in late January and submit a final draft to the select board in early February. I'm not sure if you need it earlier than February 3rd before the select board meeting on February 7th, but whenever you need it is fine with us, so that it can then go to the warrant committee and go to town meeting in May. And I think, you know, as we talk to different department heads and we write the plan itself, we have a recommendation to think about some sort of community outreach prior to the town meeting on May 3rd, so that the community has time to engage with the plan and, you know, ask questions and receive some education around its significance and why we're going through this process. And then I just wanted to fill you in on a few new developments. So the first is that we have a new staff member at a Climate to Thrive that's going to be supporting this plan. So you may be hearing from her. Her name is Naomi Albert. She's coming on as a project coordinator. She's done climate action planning for the community of St. Louis Obispo in California. And she's already started engaging with this climate action planning process and is just very sharp, is bringing a lot of nuance and depth to this work. So we're really excited to have her on board. There's a new state program that has just been announced, and I'm going to share a little bit more information about that. And then a possibility that we've been learning about to recover some of the costs associated with climate caused damages. So just really briefly, a week ago, last Wednesday, on the 1-year anniversary of Maine's announcement of Maine Won't Wait, the statewide climate action plan, the governor, and many of you may already know about this, but the governor announced quite a few new programs at the statewide level to support climate action work in the state of Maine. And one of them is specifically relevant for climate action planning at the community level and climate action work. And that's the Community Resilience Partnership, which is being handled through the Governor's Office of Policy, Innovation, and Finance. And it has funding available for communities for both climate mitigation and adaptation. Communities, there's grants for communities between 5,000 and 50,000 when communities are applying individually, and up to 100,000 when communities apply jointly, and joint application is encouraged. And there's 2 upcoming grant cycles available to communities who have first joined the partnership. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that's done in a second, but the 2 upcoming deadlines are this coming March for winter awards of financial support, and next September for summer 2023 awards of financial support. And the Community Resilience Partnership has prioritized community involvement. So when they see a proposal, they're going to want to see how the community is involved, particularly how the community is going to be involved in the planning process, how they're going to be brought along basically for the ride along the work that is happening in the community, and how, we're drawing in marginalized voices and being inclusive in the process. So that's just something to bear in mind for these grants. And the way that engaging with the Community Resilience Partnership works for a town is the first thing that you could do, and I would recommend this, is there's a webinar on December 14th that you can register for at the Community Resilience Partnership website. It's at 11 a.m. and that's a webinar specifically for communities that might be interested in applying for that grant funding. And then you need to join the partnership first before you can simultaneously join the partnership and apply for funding, but you do have to join the partnership to apply for funding. And you can either join the partnership as an individual town, or you can join the partnership as part of a regional cohort. So all the MDI towns, or some of the MDI towns, could come together as a regional cohort. And there seems to be encouragement for forming regional cohorts, is the sense I'm getting, but I think that at these webinars on the 14th, we'll get more information about that. Requirements to join are that the community has either a citizen committee or a municipal representative that is charged with basically climate action, energy reduction, transition to clean energy, and resilience. So the sustainability committee in the town of Mount Desert would serve that function. You need to complete a community resilience self-evaluation and review the list of community actions that they're prioritizing through the partnership and the funding that's available. And those all align with Maine Won't Wait. And then hold at least 1 public workshop to publicly, with the community, with anyone who wants to attend, review the self-assessment around community resilience and the action steps that you're prioritizing as a community. And so those are the 3 kind of requirements to join the partnership. Just a little bit of background of what A Climate to Thrive is doing in regards to the Community Resilience Partnership. We're going to be attending 3 webinars on December 14th. We're applying to be a service provider, which basically means that we can support towns as they go through the process of joining the Community Resilience Partnership. So we can help facilitate their process of joining the Community Resilience Partnership. We can help them hold the public workshops and conduct the assessments. We can help get that work done. We're very possibly going to also submit a proposal to serve as a regional coordinator, which means that we can actually supply technical assistance for climate action planning and the implementation of climate action plans, and receive funding to perform that role. And we've also invited the different kind of climate emergency task forces and sustainability committees on the island to come together for a meeting in the upcoming weeks to consider the possibilities of how we might best join the Community Resilience Partnership, so that we can all kind of talk about this together. And the final kind of new development that I wanted to let you all know about that I mentioned briefly is a potential avenue for recovering costs associated with climate-related damages like sea level rise or storms. So this is through an entity called the Center for Climate Integrity. And the Center for Climate Integrity, this is right off their website, helps cities and states across the country hold corporate polluters accountable for the massive impacts of climate change. We hosted CCI in November for an educational event that was really kind of phenomenal. A lot of information through that event from a lot of different people, scientists, policy experts, lawyers, and it explored their work, and that is recorded and it's available on ACT's website. And thus far, I think the focus, with this kind of cost recovery through these lawsuits has been on, damages, as I said, and not on mitigation work, just because it's legally easier to get cost recovery for damages, and maybe adaptation as well. But still a really, important avenue, and something that's going to cost communities quite a lot, unfortunately. And there is a group of lawyers we learned in Maine that are preparing to take on cases at no charge to communities. So this is something that the town might be interested in exploring. You can watch the recording at our website, and you can also just contact the Center for Climate Integrity directly to set up meetings with them to get more information. Want to be sure to pass that on to you all as well. And I don't know why my slide, oh, there we go. So if you guys have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to me and get updates on any of this work that's going on. And any questions right now as well.
Thanks, Joanna.
I just am really pleased with that. That was pretty remarkable. A lot of information. Sounds really on the ball. I'm glad we decided to enter into this, and I'm looking forward to more progress.
I'm so glad to hear that.
That was outstanding. I feel very, very confident in your capacity and your organization from what I just saw. And that's,
well, it's pretty exciting that there's some support coming from the state at this point as well.
Good.
I do just want to make sure that the community engagement, because I'm not sure that's happened at all thus far, other than with, the department heads and whatnot. So I think that's, if you're going to get buy-in, you have to have the engagement leading up to it. It's critical.
I think that that's central. I think you're absolutely right. And when we came in earlier this fall, I think that my recollection just from watching that initial meeting where Lawson presented was that there was some question of like, let's not focus too much on like a community info session and the community interacting with the plan before the town meeting. But I think we certainly want to do something. And, we're happy to help facilitate that process and happy to, have your suggestions for, based on your past experience, what would be the best avenue to do that. But definitely would like to get some of that type of work scheduled.
Yeah, I'd like to echo Matt's concern because we just received, or at least I just received a letter from a resident asking about recycling. And it was clear to me that the resident hadn't looked at any of our previous meetings or attended any of our meetings or listened to the dialogue around going back to a recycling scheme. And, that to me says that the community really doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, and I too would echo that. I know, we looked at just some draft budgets coming down the pike, and one of the things that like opened my eyes was even just remotely looking at like emergency vehicles that, are electric and, thinking about budgets and stuff like that. So I feel like the more info people understand, I mean, it's gonna.
That they voted for the proclamation.
Right, and what that represents, and I would echo Jeff, I mean, this was kind of exciting things, and the fact you've got the staff member that already has sort of experiences, it's really great, but again, like, we try as much as we can to get word and communication of what things really mean, and it's a lot.
Yeah, no, happy to help with that. I'm so glad. I wasn't sure based on that initial impression when Lawson presented in the fall, how much you wanted us to help with that process. And so happy to help however we can. And so perhaps, I can coordinate with you and maybe perhaps one of you or some of you, if there's someone that would be best to coordinate with to start planning some of that community outreach. That would be great.
Great. Well, I mean, I think we'll look forward to your update, in January, and
Great.
The more information we get, the more I think we can ask for help from you.
Great. Wonderful. Sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanna.
Thanks.
Thank you all very much.
All right, so why don't we go back to selectmen's reports? Does anybody have a report?
I got a couple of things.
Okay.
One was, Derlin, I think Luso met since our last meeting, and did they take up the question of weekly rentals or nightly rentals?
Yes, I have some ideas.
So do you have an update or?
Not really, except that we're gonna, at our next meeting, we'll have more information on that.
So it's on
It's on the
moving
table,
forward.
yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that at our last meeting in November, we talked about, I thought it was hiring a consultant or someone to do a study on, to advise us on securing fire protection to underserved areas of the town. And I wondered where we are with that.
Mike's away, I'll have him report back at the next meeting.
Okay,
on that.
Yeah. This is specifically regarding the water.
Yeah, that was over
Yeah.
Long Pond and those
well,
places.
but we talked about having a comprehensive study
Yeah.
done for the town, because he felt there were areas that were underserved, yeah.
Right, he was, I think, gonna just kind of come up with a rough figure about what that study would
Well,
run us, basically,
yeah,
and
and,
then we'd move from there.
right,
Right.
or he was gonna find somebody, I thought.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
He had somebody in mind that
Yeah.
had done that
Yeah.
in another community, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I have one thing too, and this just, Darlene, and you might be able to help with this, at the, Northeast Harbor Christmas and having an event and things like that, and then the recent losses of some pretty high up community members. Did we at one point do a cane or something to the oldest member in Connie Madeira?
Oh, yeah.
And I just, is that something, I
Yeah,
don't know
we
how.
got sort of backed off a little bit during the COVID.
Right.
time, Because we
Yeah.
used to have nice celebrations.
Right.
but If you want to try to do like a Zoom thing or something, what we'll have to do is do some research on who.
Well, and I was thinking we
Last
might
number
even be able
was
to
where I
do
think at the
something.
community cafe, or we did.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
outside,
Yeah.
if we wait and do, I don't know, I just
Yeah, that's a
I
good,
feel like
yeah,
we need some
yeah,
happy and some,
yeah.
Don't
the
have
other
a lot
night
of
was,
that,
while
have
it was, might have been little, it was
It was
gigantic.
wonderful.
And
Maybe
it was
if we worked on that, and by springtime, when it warms up a little bit, I like the idea of something.
Yeah, at the marina.
Outside,
maybe.
yeah.
Outside,
Yeah.
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 So just, I don't know, a couple people mentioned it,
Can
and
Can I just say, we're awarding the Boston Gold-Headed Cane to the oldest person in the community. This is a population that doesn't always last till springtime. Their days are numbered. So I would think the sooner we could have this celebration and the sooner we could have a positive impact on the newspaper, so it doesn't say the school board is doing this and that. Let's do it as soon as possible so that we can have this celebration of the longevity of this community and these people. These people are falling like flies. I think waiting till spring is a mistake.
I just wonder about an online Zoom
Yeah, that's.
presentation is a little
in.
impersonal.
Yeah.
That's my
But you know
concern.
something, Matt? What I would say to you is an online presentation may be impersonal, but all we need to do is get the newspaper there and put it in the paper. And as many people will see it probably anyway, and perhaps people will be able to rejoice. I just think we need something happy. And again, this is a very time-limited population.
well, I think it would be good to at least see how long it would take to gather this information. I can't imagine it would take too long, and then regroup maybe after the first of the year and see what things are looking like. And the community cafe, I know people aren't eating there, they're just picking stuff up, but maybe something as
On the
simple as
Thursday,
that, yeah. And maybe,
When there's a natural gathering
right,
anyway.
and that's a good point.
Because you
that-
get quite a crowd there, don't you?
Yeah, but I wouldn't plan on
No.
we've got pretty strict policies,
Oh.
because
Yeah.
we do have an elderly clientele and like to get
Right,
people in and out.
exactly. Well, I think maybe if we can just look into the prospects, and
Right.
then maybe in the next month or so, think about options, and if we,
Yeah, we'll come back to something.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be good.
but thank you, Trina, I guess that's a good point of they're falling. We want to be able to recognize while we can, so.
You're welcome. And I think that, with this with the new variant coming on, we all need something positive to look at. And we've been doing this award long before the community cafe. So I don't think, so let's just think about honoring our elders and getting it done.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Would you want to be the ringleader on that, Katrina?
I believe the town should have those records. And I would think that once the list has been completed, as the flies start to fall, they would be taken off the list. But I know that at the beginning of the pandemic, I was a care call person for a 100-year-old woman in Soamesville who is still alive, but I know the ambulance is going to her house more and more frequently. And it just concerns me that we won't get to honor her. So I don't have the availability to those records, Martha. It's records that the town would have.
Okay. Thank you, Katrina. All right, let's move on to new business. Consideration of proposal to amend the town office hours to Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. break for lunch, 1 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. due to need described in memo from Jake Wright, Finance Director.
How much heads up are we giving community members that this is gonna take place? I don't know what kind of foot traffic you have during those hours, but, and I know that in your memo, you mentioned that a lot of the business that people come in to do can be done online also. But I wonder, I mean, how much are we gonna try to warn people ahead of time? Because no matter what, if they show up and the door's they're not gonna be happy. So unless the person they complain to first says to them, well, they announced it, then that's all I'm concerned about.
Put it on Facebook, in the paper.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a perfectly reasonable proposal, but, there's always that potential for the wrong
And
person to get.
I don't know, I sympathize, I'm not being sympathetic, but I just feel like it's a disservice to this community. We've already, we were 8:30 and we've already switched it to 9. And I mean, I don't know, but people take their lunch break and come here. And I just feel like no matter how you try to get word out, and all it's gonna take is one tip-off person,
I will say, I think you did a good job of spelling out why this is the
Yes.
preferable solution. I agree with Wendy. I think the residents and taxpayers in Mount Desert need to have access. And for a lot of working people, it's either first thing in the morning, lunch break, or right after work. But I understand why this is being done. So if this is the route we take, I think if we can communicate at the same time, this is just a temporary situation. And we'll be switching back hopefully as soon as possible.
So to address both of those points, first one being notice, the proposal could absolutely be amended to go into effect at a later date, giving us plenty of time to let everyone know. And then secondarily, the midday break, I think, is extremely important if you're on your own, because right now, I mean, we've had, when this situation has come up, a lunch break is basically non-existent, and there's other like the cashiers don't just do cashiering all day, they have lots of other stuff on the plate, and the nature of these emergencies are that we don't have any heads up. So you may come into work thinking that, okay, I've got a noon deadline that I can get it done in the morning if the other person, takes over cashiering duties a little bit, and then you get blindsided with, oh, I'm the only one, now what am I going to do about this other deadline? Because we have to serve the public. So one proposal to address the concern about access could be, for the temporary duration that I'm describing, we add the lunch break, but maybe push the morning hours back to 8:30. That would, kind of alleviate the concern of access while still giving really the time in the middle that we kind of desperately need in these situations.
Again, I mean, I'm sympathetic, but I work in an office with 4 people and we've had quarantining and sick kids, and there's been days that, you don't get a lunch break. And I know it's crappy, but it's the wave of who we are. And I'm concerned that it's not fair to this community to close midday. That's a time of day, the post office is closed and ticks people off.
For 2 hours.
Understandable.
I mean,
This is
so,
absolutely y'all's decision. This is the concern, this is the issue that we've been dealing with. This is a potential proposal. I'm happy to hear exactly,
I
what
mean,
you
I
guys want to do
would
about it.
much rather see it if it would help to, go back to the 8:30 during this temporary time frame, and if we had maybe until March 15th, or whatever, if we had an idea of when it might end, I feel like, I don't know,
Do you have a sense of how what the temporary means?
Well, the timeframe is basically determined by the rate at which Claire comes back in full capacity. And I'm doing everything in my power not to push that, I want her coming back in a time frame that she feels comfortable doing so. She's been making remarkable, strides, and I don't foresee it being a long time, but I don't feel that it's my place to tell her when she needs to be 100%.
Absolutely.
No, and that's why I'm super sympathetic, but
Would it be possible to close it for a half an hour instead of a full hour?
Yeah, this entire proposal is amendable to whatever you guys would like to see.
do people, I mean, I don't know, like in my office, we get a little lunch break. So is it an hour lunch break that your staff gets, or is it about a half an hour?
We try to give them an hour off, that it's not a full paid hour. So what we're really looking for is just a break where some alleviation from the cashier duties could exist in a situation where, they're the only person there.
Right.
And a 30-minute lunch break would be better than nothing, absolutely.
Well, I'm going to misquote Bill Firm here,
Oh,
but years ago, he said regarding a different matter, he said, even if you give the impression that you're taking something away from someone, you want to make the effort to make them feel like they're getting something too, whether they are or not. So whether it's opening at 8:30 or doing a half hour or whatever, I think if we could do something like that, and again, emphasize the fact this is just temporary, I think that would work. Because it's everyone's in a tough situation to try to make everything run smoothly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think all over the place, a lot of businesses are curtailing their hours in a lot of places because of labor shortage. And that's not necessarily the same issue, but in some ways it's all related.
And I know if I went to my school board and I said I needed to close the high school office for a half hour in the middle of the day, I would not get far.
Yeah, but they also, if you walked out, would beg you to come back. The ed techs have that same situation in the schools. It's terrible, but it is understandable. And so whatever, I'll defer. But I think people can live with it. I know they're gonna grumble no matter what we do.
So we need to, I guess, make a call
motion
here.
of some sort, yeah. So what do you guys think? A half an hour at lunch, close, or earlier opening?
Well, I defer to the folks working
Yeah.
in
I
the
kinda
office
do
because they're the
too.
ones
I
that
mean,
are
you
the.
guys know, and I'm not here between 12 and 1, and the cashier thing is, like you said, not everybody can do that. So I do think you did a great job, and I mean, I feel like, I don't know, I don't feel right about.
Well, it sounds like the biggest, the best way that we could give as much value as we're taking would be to open at 8:30 and do the 30-minute lunch. That would give the net same amount of time to the public, but alleviate a pretty serious problem that we kind of have no other way of dealing with, aside from telling an employee that, I'm sorry about all the other stuff that you have to do that's due at noon, and that you will have no time to yourself at all. And, in terms of morale, that's a hard, and I know a lot of people are getting that speech. I just wanted to propose something that would maybe keep us from being one of the ones that have to give that speech.
So, we could do that, and if it's not working, we'll revisit it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would support that, I think.
So you're talking about from being open from 8:30 to 12 and then 12:30 to 4:30?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Phil, why don't you sit over here so everyone can see you?
So Phil's question is, will the door be locked?
I would say.
If we're shut, we're gonna shut, is the door gonna be locked, or it's just that service won't be available? I think, that would also be a little more comforting, I think, for the public.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, that is a good point.
I will be there, so if we don't, I don't see any reason why we have to lock the door.
I mean, really, as a community member, if I came in and you said, I'm sorry, that person's not here right now, but they'll be back by 1, I'd be, okay, I'll come back at 1 tomorrow. Right.
I just need to, I think
That's a
that
good
adds to the
point.
human thing.
Yeah.
That's right.
The whole idea is to be supportive.
Still retains some of our availability.
Discussing this.
Right,
Yep.
that's
That's a great idea.
good. Katrina, did
Can
you
I
have a question?
ask? Yes, has a time study been done to see when the most activity happens within the cashier entity of the town office? Is more cashiering done from 12 to 1 or 2 to 3? Or, I mean, has there been any kind of a time study done, or is it just lunch?
It varies from day to day.
And probably time of month too,
Yeah,
right?
you can't, fix, like, oh, we're gonna have 10 people walk in today. You might have nobody for 45 minutes, and then all of a sudden, 5 people walk in at once. You just can't.
So I love that suggestion, Phil, and that idea, because at the very least, your door's open and you can take a message and.
Well, would
Max that you would be waiting those 30 minutes.
Right.
In that case, would you be more open to the full hour or not? Because I guess if I was thinking you'd have to lock the door, but if someone can be there to receive people and tell them, I'm sorry, we're not doing any business between 12 and 1, I would go back to letting the hour.
But there is other business besides cashiering.
Certainly,
So people
yeah.
may come in to look at tax maps.
And they were able to do that
Honestly,
during that hour or not?
Yeah, there's no reason why they wouldn't be able to.
Okay, so that, yeah, I would say you don't need to do, I would say go to what you were gonna do. Take the hour off from cashiering and make sure that people, and make a notice that no business transactions can take place between the hours of 12 and 1. Otherwise, other town activities can take place.
And I guess the reason that I had phrased it as town hours is that it seems like that would be the way you would give notice.
Right.
If it's only applicable when we're down to 1 person, then, that note, I guess we could even amend it to say that, no business can be done when we only have 1 cashier. Because I don't see if we have at least 2, we can make do, and we're pushing through, and I don't see a reason for it to be an everyday thing. But, basically all I'm looking for is the authority and the
Right.
ability to say, when you're the only person working, you can have a break.
That seems fair to me.
I would much rather think that we don't really make a motion, but we support what you need to do for your staff on any given day. And if, God forbid, you had 2 cashiers out, you would not be able to do that type of business. And I'd much rather, as a town taxpayer, be told, could you please come back tomorrow due to staffing, than the door is shut and you can't do it at all.
Absolutely.
So I'd
Yeah.
much rather
Yeah,
take
that's
this
good.
right off the table. We support you, we trust you, we believe in our employees, we want Claire to be 110% to come back full. And in a circumstance when she can't be there, you take that responsibility. Is that
Yeah,
fair?
that sounds great.
Well, I agree with you 100%. I think we should, though, make it sort of formal approval that Jake close the business hours for an hour on the authority.
As
of the select board.
necessary.
As necessary on our authority, that we, move to allow him. I'll go ahead and do that if that's all right. I move that we, what's the word I'm looking for? Authorize, thank you.
Yes.
Authorize Jake Wright, the finance director, and his staff to close the office to business transactions as needed between the hours of 12 and 1 due to occasional potential staff shortages.
And if it has to be an hour, and if it has to be a half hour, like that,
Mhm.
I
Whatever.
second that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sometimes it takes a
Yeah.
village, right?
And
Yeah.
it, like, I think maybe you mentioned, John, but if we could just have an update on how it's all working,
Yeah.
you know, a month from now or something like that.
Hopefully, you know, it basically never happens, but it's become a recurring problem.
Right.
So I think we need some sort of solution. I think this addresses the problem.
And, yeah, and if somebody gives you a hard time during that hour because they came in, then you can say.
Call
It's
Jeff.
Jeff's fault.
It's Jeff's fault.
Don't call Jeff. No, thank you, but, you know, that's,
I
Okay.
think there might have been a few questions asked in the chat.
I think
didn't
that was
see
all
them.
Lincoln.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
well, he answered no.
Okay.
Was there a time study? Oh, there was a third one. I didn't see the third one. Yeah, please. Oh. Okay, thank
I
you.
can't see it.
It's
What is
just
it?
about,
About the MRC.
Like Carol's follow-up that
All right.
Vigilante was supported.
Okay, we can close that.
yeah, you can close that now. Please.
Thank you for. Do we vote? No, we haven't
No.
voted yet.
We didn't yet.
Okay.
Okay, so, all in favor? Great, thanks, Jake.
Well done, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you, thanks, Phil.
Yeah, for weighing in, that was good help.
Good when you get over in here.
Yeah,
Comfortable over there. And I get to see you all.
you could sit way in the back.
So, you know, I forgot one thing when Johanna, you know, did exactly what I was hoping she would do, you know, and I feel responsible to you all, you know, that, you know, this is basically it's been impossible for me and any of us volunteers to do that level of
Yeah.
engagement. I just want to know how you all felt about if we did, you know, apply for a grant. Do we want to do it as ourselves, or are we interested in doing it as a community? That's something.
You
to
mean,
think
you mean with
mean
other
multiple
towns?
Exactly. with
Yeah,
other towns.
I would prefer with other towns.
And that makes me happy too, but I wanted to get you all, you know, feeling.
I don't know.
consensus.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
that
I
just
think
makes
that.
sense.
I
It
think
makes a
the
lot
more
more
things
sense.
we can do as an
I'll be on
island, the
I will
better.
be on the group call on the 15th of that meeting that she's talking about, and I want to be able to speak up and say that my select board supports
Yeah.
being involved.
Yeah, collaboration always is,
Double the
Better.
amount of the grant possibility.
And, that's what they've asked too, they want
That's
people
true.
to gang up and
Yeah.
when possible.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
It just means that that's what they're looking for.
I know,
so
right?
it's good.
okay. Consideration of adding Juneteenth to the list of paid holidays and close the office in accordance with state law HP 136 LD 183 that state and county offices observe.
I would say I fully support that. I think it's one of those holidays that wasn't really, maybe out of ignorance, on anyone's radar, but you realize the significance of it. And now that it is a federal holiday and certainly a state holiday, I think it'd be ridiculous for us not to follow suit, honestly.
Second,
Good, all in favor?
Well done.
Good. Okay. Consideration of reopening the town's recycling center located at 307 Sergeant Drive.
Yes.
Yes, I thought.
Yeah.
I consider it an excellent idea.
Yes,
good.
it's gotta
But
happen.
there was some stuff about, okay.
it's single sword, right, or double sword.
Double sword.
Double
Well,
sword.
like, yeah.
Tony, how does that work? So we'll put like cardboard, boxboard and things in one bin, plastics and other things in the other, so they'll sort that out okay.
Correct. Yes, that's what, working with EMR, they suggested that would work. And the cardboard takes up so much space in one container. If we don't flatten it, that's the rationale.
And Tony, that's what Bar Harbor's doing, right?
I think theirs are all commingled, but I can't say for certain. But this,
It's commingled.
yes, as this is laid out for you folks, this is much less expensive than theirs and a couple of the other area towns. That's why I recommend that we go with EMR.
And I appreciate the fact that you don't think we have to have an attendant there, that the guys that are up there at the town garage can keep an eye on things.
Thank you. Yes, especially the garbage guys first thing in the morning. It depends on the weather in the winter. But in times when we've been between attendance, we've done quite well policing the area.
And having only 2 bins instead of 4 or 5 takes some of the confusion away from the customers.
Yes.
Well, I would hope that as community members too, that we want this, so maybe we be extra careful and do it right.
So can I just ask a couple of, you wrote up a nice report about how you came to this proposal for the, and you mentioned 2 other, one which was not feasible and one that was too expensive. Is that right? Ellsworth couldn't take us and because of their staff situation, and then there was 2 other possibilities. One, go ahead.
One required 3-phase power to power up a compactor, which we're not set up for. So in addition to needing 3-phase power, we would have to do probably some extreme modifications to the recycling center. One thing is when you compact recyclables, you generate leachate, and I would want a collection system. I don't care how tight the containers are. As we found on the hazardous waste day, they can leak. And the other one that was down around Portland area, the transportation. Deadly.
Yeah. Was that Eco Maine?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have one other question, in your outlining of the costs, and I don't know how much we produce, but you said that there were 86 trips per year by truck. I mean, where did that number come from? Can you help me understand that?
Fiscal year 19, I pulled up all the invoices and counted them.
Okay.
Yep. And that's pretty much representative. And our recycling rate, that's why I liked the 1 bin all in when it was working. The recycling rate went up drastically. We're around 13% as a community. And the state quote law that's really not enforced at this point is 50%. That's why the 50% is written into fiber rights / coastal resources. That facility's minimum for recycling is 50%. That's why Mike pointed out that they hit the high 50s a couple of times.
Okay.
That was significance of that. And EMR is ready to start tomorrow if we like.
This all sounds really great. I know it's all supposed to be interim and temporary, but I imagine that when we went 1 bin all in, that your garbage, your trash delivery people saw a significant increase in the amount of stuff they had to pick up. And do you have
110 tons is what we've averaged over the last 7 years. So that's less, that's 8%. We're around, actually, I can tell you. That's about 6.5%, Jeff, over what we annually collect. We usually get around 1,700 tons of garbage.
Okay, so you don't, okay, so it's not going to impact a whole lot.
No.
What your guys will need to pick, what your folks will need to pick up.
No, the guys, in the summer, 1 crew runs over on Fridays, but that's just the nature of the length of the run and what's on it. Other than that, they're back at the shop. Occasionally, they run over, but they're usually ready to go home by 3:30.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay. Phil? Yes, Phil.
There's a lot of unacceptable items that in this needs to go up to Casella, and we just need some very clear signage that, like, no utensils, bottle caps. There's things on their list, and we just need a little. I think the public needs a little bit of education. We're not going to have any contamination if someone puts cardboard in, but that's all. That's not the problem. There are things that we don't want to see go in. Because people think no plastic film, no plastic bags. It's very important that these things don't go in the bins. And that's one of the things we lost when we trained the community on 1 big all in. So I just think there's going to need to be a little bit of, we want to put something in the paper, of course, but we want to list the
Have a
items
sign there.
Yeah.
and the sign, we don't read, but Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, with the
Thank you
skull and
for-
crossbones on it, Tony, maybe?
Absolutely, and yes, we've always had signs there, but as you folks know, that center's open 24/7,
Yeah,
so anything can end up in that.
people are required to read in order for
But
the
you-
sign to have any.
A
Exactly.
reminder about cameras would be
Don't you have a
good.
camera up there?
We have lots of
Tony?
cameras,
They can.
Yeah.
but if you walk up to a recycling container with a 35-gallon drum and dump it in, we're not that good.
Yeah. We're good at the mattresses and refrigerators, that's about it, right?
Exactly, thank you, John, you got it.
Well, and that,
Well, I think if this happens, it's definitely worthy of, if we could do like one of the town emails
yeah,
and maybe come up with a list that you could go over, Tony, that could be included in that right from the start to let people know what they can and what they can't take there.
Yeah, I have a list from EMR, yep,
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
You're welcome.
okay,
So, I have a motion and a second, do I?
not yet.
Not yet.
Okay,
I move we accept the recycling plan as presented with no attendant.
And do we have to authorize Tony to put that in
And
place
Tony to put it
as
in
soon as
place.
possible?
Well, they
As
said
soon as
they were
possible.
ready to go as soon as tomorrow, but he proposed wait until, not till next Monday, so that we could get everything, make sure.
On
that
I
Monday,
agree.
on
So the
Monday, as of
13th?
Monday.
Will do.
All right,
Second.
good, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, consideration of wastewater superintendent and Montague's request to solicit competitive prices for a new work truck for the wastewater division of Public Works.
Sounds like he needs a new
Move
truck.
approval, we
Yeah.
get holes in the floor, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
And he's
We get our
also
money's
looking
worth.
at, and he's looking at the hybrid possibilities and so forth that look.
Hybrid
like-
electric and gasoline driven, yes.
Yep, good.
Okay, so move.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Tony, I said that that truck is up for inspection in January, just because of the situation with vehicles right now. Are we gonna be okay, even if, let's say, it's a 4-month wait, for example, to get an adequate replacement?
Yes, yes, we will.
Okay.
Okay, consideration of casting a ballot in the MRC election of directors for calendar years 2022 and 2024.
Okay.
Okay, so,
I move we nominate Jim Villette.
I would second that nomination. I do, from what I understand, 3 out of the 4 of these folks are gonna end up on the board regardless, right? But, I was
I
impressed.
just like, I'd like somebody else from the island too.
Absolutely.
I think it's good, yeah,
Well, I'll be the fly in the ointment.
go ahead.
I just wonder, and we've had these conversations before, but if you have someone that joins a board, ideally, you're gonna have everyone rowing the boat in the same direction. And if you have someone who has sort of other ideas, that can make what can sometimes appear to be a dysfunctional committee already even more dysfunctional. So I wonder what the benefit of that is. So that would be, I guess, my concern.
well.
I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that this gentleman is very knowledgeable about solid waste, but it appears to me that everyone has some either, knowledge or hands-on experience with it as well.
I'm not sure I agree that it's good to all row in the same direction. I think although we often agree on things, I think one of the strengths of this board is we're coming from very different places and think differently about many things, but we come to consensus. I think it's good to have a diversity of view on a board.
I would say that when you're in a situation like we are now, it's important to have everyone working towards the same goal rather than someone off working on a separate goal, would be my opinion.
And see, we're different.
Exactly. And we can still get along, that's the
I mean, I
wonderful
think that
thing.
both points are valid, and there was a time in this country and probably in this state as well that where differing opinions were respected and discussed professionally, and we don't see a lot of that in today's world, so I understand your perspective. You don't want somebody just to dig in their heels and be, and not be a professional and not have an open dialogue, but I'm hopeful that wouldn't be the case.
I would hope that if they are interested in serving on this committee, that they might be thinking in the same direction, but
I look at it as germinating somebody new on a committee that needs some newness. It's not put well, but, I would say that, it would be nice to have somebody on there that is not a familiar name, that has the credentials this guy has, and that clearly can think out of the box. He's got a whole slew of position papers on everything from toxic waste to whatever, and he's gonna be one member of a large board. He's not gonna overturn the whole thing, upend it, but I think he might add to the mix in a way that these other candidates don't.
I kind of like the community piece too, because we are unique and.
Yeah. You want people on our team.
So it's been seconded, so.
Okay, yeah, all right, all in favor?
One opposed?
Thank you.
No, I'm serious. I think it's good.
Yeah.
No, it's important.
It's very
Yeah.
important.
I think it's really good.
All right,
Then I'm not the only one.
And it's valid.
It is
And
valid.
it's a valid
it's a valid
concern.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I think that's.
Request approval of the 2022 summer dockage rates for the Northeast Harbor Marina to include a new category for boats 100 feet and over.
Is John on?
Even, I'm here.
Okay, John, there you are.
You're up.
So, in doing some research, most of the marinas around, up and down the coast of Maine and even, down the East Coast, they all have a different category for boats that are over 100 feet. They do take up more of our resources and, put a little more strain on the docks, and just keeping in running with Southwest Harbor and other marinas in the area. I think it's time that we do this and implement this new fee structure for boats over 100 feet. The Harbor Committee was in full agreement.
Sounds completely reasonable to me.
Yep, sounds good.
I'll move it.
Go for it.
And I'll second it.
Good, all in favor? Great, thanks, John.
Thank you.
We still got
We got
him.
more.
He's
I
not.
got two more.
Thank you again then, hold on. Request authorization to pay for replacement of 6 of the Northeast Harbor mooring float top chains by Alva Barge Service for $4,548 using funds from the Northeast Harbor Mooring Float CIP 6410100-24681, which has a balance of $321,030. $321,030.38.
I move authorization. That sounds like something that needs to be done, and
Yeah,
got
Second.
the money to do it.
great.
Thank you.
All in favor? Great, thank you. Now I
One
can
more.
say-
No, one
Oh,
more.
one more. Request authorization to pay MCM Electric $8,300 for relocation of the North Dock power cables using funds from the Northeast Harbor Marina underwater utility lines CIP 6410100-24680, which has a balance of $110,743.87.
Can you just explain why they need to be moved?
They need to be moved to make room for the new entrances for the abutments that we're replacing coming in the spring, as long as they're approved by town meeting. And it'll clean up the space and make room for what needs to happen. The current abutments have been given a 2-year time frame, and we're approaching that. So this is a kind of a must.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Move it.
Second it.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discuss the proposition that Mount Desert join with other MDI towns in a lawsuit against petroleum companies for the cost of repairing and replacing infrastructure due to climate change. Did,
Is this connected to
That's
the?
what Joanne
video.
was telling
She
me.
touched on it in
She
her
touched on it.
presentation, and we got that
Yeah.
video thing.
So,
Yeah,
so did everybody watch the video?
I watched
Yep.
part of it, I didn't watch it all.
I watched it.
It's long.
I watched
It
almost.
was,
It was
I'm not
long.
sure that I want to make a decision like this just based on like YouTube video or the single presentation. I will say it seemed like it was sort of the tail end of the video. You can fast forward through some of it. It deals more with the lawsuit. They have a law professor at the Maine Law School kind of give an overview. It seems like it's a reach. It has to be done under state law or sort of, it's a reach, I would say. It's probably generous. So I do have some questions about it, but like I said, I'm not sure I want to make a decision based on Vimeo or whatever it was.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I would suggest that entering into something like this, and maybe it's my cynical side coming through, is largely symbolic anyway. I mean, no matter what happens, the people with the money are gonna defend it to the end, and we'll all be long gone before they give it up. So I don't have any problem putting our name on something like that, but I don't think any of us should hold out any hopes that anything will come of it other than our name is attached to a reasonable claim.
Yeah, it's
I-
going to take federal.
I know.
I tend
level
to
stuff.
agree with Jeff, but what I was trying to avoid was exposing you to a long presentation.
Right.
Thank you.
It was a great,
Appreciate it.
Isla's on right now, she's up there somewhere. It was a wonderful presentation, it really was. I actually stayed on and listened for the duration, which is rare for me on Zoom. And I thought there were some very good points and some very alarming data coming out of how quickly over the last 10 to 15 years, big oil has ramped up its emissions.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think it's a conversation we need to keep on the table, maybe. But I agree with Matt too. I think that there are a lot of details floating around right now, and I don't think Isla or you, I don't think we really have at this point, right, tonight, have really enough to work with. So.
I was wondering, Phil, not to put you on the spot, but as the chair of the sustainability committee, if you have a view on this.
I don't really know enough about it, just to really speak up. I think I'm still gathering the information. I've
Yeah.
not seen the presentation. I don't know all the players. I know that there is plenty of environmental, degradation, throughout, the US and the world. And I think as we go away from the US, it's even worse. Anything we can do to help, mitigate those problems is really helpful. So that's the best I could do on the spot.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, the scary thing, I mean, not only the rise of the sea level, but I think one of the slides in the presentation was sort of the biomass or fish sort of off the East Coast, and the way that's just moving up and away from the shore is not good news for Maine and many other states.
No. And it's a little concerning that at least according to the presentations, that the biggest oil companies, in fact, all the oil companies, knew this was coming decades ago.
Sure.
And I think it's a good idea to keep it on the table and
Yeah.
keep listening and gathering, and I'd like a little more time to process some of this.
And,
try to
I think
understand.
symbolic can be good. I think it can be powerful
I
sometimes.
do too, but I think that's all it's gonna be.
So, having said that,
I'd move that we take no action at this time in regards to this lawsuit, but again, keep it on the table, so to speak, to continue conversation.
Yeah, I would second that.
good, all in favor?
Yeah.
Okay, other business. I do have a question. I'm gonna go back to the consent agenda. Just a quick question. So we get these 3 applications from the DMR, right? They're notifying us that these are the applications up for renewal. We have no idea what those applications.
No, we don't.
I tried to read them myself and couldn't.
Yeah.
They
And I
give you
get
the numbers,
yeah, do we
notifications
have-
from the DMR, and I
You know,
can
it's
find
just
them.
not helpful information from them, and why do they bother? You know,
They got it.
Ask him next time to send us more text.
Yeah. yeah,
Yes.
just, you know, some names. I don't wanna be, you know, we can't approve or not approve, or, you know, it's, thank you, we'll acknowledge that we received your information, but it's a waste of our time if there's nothing we can do about it. And I certainly don't want to approve an application that's it's gonna go into crisis over here on Black Island.
Right.
You know,
So,
Phil,
I get all the notifications from DMR, you know, I'm an ex-fish farmer, and so I get, the last one I received was October 8th, notice of lease renewal hearing, Swans Island, and BIS Cook Aquaculture is the last one that I received. Now, is there an oyster farm or something, or well, there is the one mussel farm, right? Trumpet Island is still technically in part of Mount Desert, even though the farm itself, it's a gray area, right? Harvard Island is technically not in the town of Mount Desert, but they use part of the land, and then I think they're in business in the town of Mount Desert.
yeah, and
Their lease is not in the town of Mount Desert.
yeah, but do they use Bartlett's Landing?
They do.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's obviously the one. I mean, the salmon farm they run off of Blacks, is that up for renewal? Is that the one? Is that one of the ones?
It is the one off Black.
So,
That was October 8th, though.
you know, what's the story there? I don't know. I know what I read in the paper, and I know what I've heard. So what is the truth? You know, are they gonna renew an application for a company that littered the bottom with millions of dead salmon? I mean, what's the
Their
story?
waste.
Well, they haven't cleaned it up, they couldn't leave them.
Yeah.
Worked out what they could.
What shouldn't have happened?
Well, things did go wrong, you know, it happens, unfortunately, it happens in chicken, chicken farms too. It happens in, cow farms, and it happens in racetracks, and, animals die, and, the ocean is it was a disease. It's more than likely, it was definitely, they had some huge outbreak that, took them all in. It wasn't like they froze in the middle of winter, it was a summertime thing.
Well, they claimed it was an oxygen issue. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
And then anyway.
These are sea pens, just to be clear, and,
Yeah.
all my, I know quite a bit about, raising salmon, and, you don't run bubblers out in the ocean. It's not a closed, it's not like a hatchery where you need to, pump oxygen in.
Well, which again is another reason why it's more of a concern than a barn full of chicken. Because your
It's in the
chickens
water.
don't immediately spread all over
Everywhere.
the place and infect all the neighboring chickens by floating around their rotten parts. Sorry, it's a very different situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was clear that the whole thing's, no pun intended, but it smelled.
Yes,
The way
it
it was
did.
handled and dealt with, and now we get notified with no explanation from DMR that they're renewing these licenses. What's the point?
I think you should contact, you should have
Maybe we should
Maryland write a
contact
letter
DMR.
for better clarification to the DMR before we approve anything.
Good idea.
I think that's a good idea.
Darrell?
Ketchup.
Sorry, Charlie.
There was one on the consent agenda also, that the fact that we got those minutes from the Acadia Park Advisory Commission, that was something we pushed for a while back in their draft minutes, but that was very helpful.
Yes.
So I mean,
Yeah, I have to say, that was a nice,
I'm glad to have seen that come through, and I forgot to mention that when we did that.
yeah. And thank you to Kendall, who has been remarkably politic in his approach.
Absolutely.
All right. So any other business? Nope. Okay, treasurer's warrants, town invoices, AP 2231 in the amount of $549,157.74. Move approval?
Second.
All in favor? State fees and payroll benefits, AP 2228, AP 2229, AP 2230, and town payroll PR 2212 in the amount of $201,141.07.
Move signature?
Second.
All in favor?
One abstention.
Acknowledge school invoice number 7 and 11 in the amount of $211,371.
Move acknowledgement.
Second,
All in favor? Thank you. A motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Book that next time.